did not arrive at this moment by accident, and deep down you have always known that. Even when your life looked ordinary on the outside, even when the days repeated themselves and the nights felt heavier than you could explain, there was something inside you that refused to agree with the limits placed around you. You could feel it in the silence. You could feel it in the stretching. You could feel it in the moments when obedience cost you more than comfort ever could. While others chose convenience, you chose restraint. While others rushed to satisfy the flesh, you held your ground and waited. While others laughed at conviction, you listened when God whispered. That is why this moment is different. That is why this message reaches you with weight. Heaven has seen what people overlooked, and God has watched every private decision that proved your heart was still turned toward Him. You know what it means to obey when there is no applause. You know what it means to walk away from what looked good because it was not God. You know what it means to carry questions without demanding instant answers. That kind of obedience is not casual. It is not weak. It is not the behavior of someone lost in religion or trapped in fear. It is the evidence of a soul that has been marked by reverence. You kept saying yes in places where nobody would have blamed you for saying no. You kept choosing purity when compromise would have been easier. You kept choosing humility when pride wanted to rise in your throat. You kept choosing prayer when frustration begged you to react. And every one of those hidden decisions built something in the spirit that you could not yet see with natural eyes. There were times you wondered whether your obedience mattered at all. You watched people cut corners and still seem to prosper. You watched loud people get celebrated while your quiet faithfulness went unnoticed. You watched doors swing open for those who manipulated, deceived, and forced their own way forward, while you stood still, trying not to move ahead of God's timing. That can test a person deeply. That can make the heart tired. That can make even a sincere believer ask whether heaven is truly paying attention. But this is where many lose sight of the truth. God does not measure your life the way this world measures it. He is not impressed by noise. He is not rushed by human timelines. He is not distracted by performances. He looks for alignment. He watches for surrender. He honors the soul that obeys even when obedience feels costly, lonely, and misunderstood. That is why your story cannot be compared to those who live by impulse. Your path has required a different kind of strength. You have had to endure delay without becoming bitter. You have had to release things you wanted without letting resentment poison your spirit. You have had to stand in uncertainty and still believe that God's character remains good even when His hand seems hidden. That is not small. That is sacred. And the reason it is sacred is because obedience is never wasted. A single act of surrender can shift years of warfare. A single decision to remain faithful can preserve a future you do not yet understand. A single refusal to rebel can protect blessings that are still being prepared beyond your sight. Beloved chosen one, this is the part many people never understand about your life. They see the stillness, but they do not see the building. They see the waiting, but they do not see the arranging. They see the tears, but they do not see the oil being formed through them. You are not behind. You are being established. You are not forgotten. You are being watched over with precision. God has not ignored your obedience. He has been gathering every surrendered moment, every resisted temptation, every prayer whispered through grief, every tear cried into a pillow at night, every time you wanted to give up but chose to trust Him one more day. Nothing has been lost. Nothing has slipped through His hands. Nothing about your faithfulness has gone unseen. There is a reason the pressure has been so intense. There is a reason the warfare grew stronger precisely when you decided to obey more deeply. Darkness reacts when destiny matures. The moment you stopped living casually, the battle around you changed. The moment you chose the narrow path, resistance increased. That was not proof that you were abandoned. It was proof that your obedience was disrupting something. Your yes to God carried more force than you realized. Your restraint broke agreements you never fully saw. Your surrender interrupted patterns that were meant to repeat across generations. You thought you were simply trying to survive. Heaven knew you were breaking cycles. So now hear this clearly. The God who asked for your obedience is not unjust. He is not extracting faithfulness from you with no intention of responding. He is not leading you through refinement just to leave you in ashes. He is preparing to reveal what only obedience could qualify you to carry, not because you earned His love, because you never had to earn that. Not because you forced His hand, because no one can. But because obedience positions you, it clears the vessel. It steadies the heart. It trains the spirit to hold what revelation is about to bring. There are things God will only place into the hands of someone who has learned not to worship the gift more than the giver. So do not despise your hidden years. Do not belittle your silent victories. Do not call yourself weak because you trembled and still obeyed. That trembling obedience may be the purest offering you ever gave. God saw it all. He saw when your voice shook and you still told the truth. He saw when your heart broke and you still chose mercy. He saw when opportunity knocked, wearing the face of compromise, and you still turned away. He saw when loneliness pressed against you and you still refused to return to what He delivered you from. Comment 111 if you know God has been shaping you in secret. This is not the end of the process. It is the edge of unveiling. The same God who watched you obey in private is preparing to make His faithfulness known in ways that will leave no room for confusion. What looked like loss will be reinterpreted. What looked like silence will make sense. What looked like delay will reveal itself as protection. And you will understand that obedience was never your burial place. It was your preparation ground. You are standing closer than you think to the moment when heaven answers the questions you have carried, not with vague comfort, but with unmistakable clarity. Stay steady now. Stay clean in spirit. Stay low before God, because the one who saw your obedience is preparing to reveal everything in His perfect time. What you called a hidden season was never empty to God. It was full of witnesses that you could not see, full of records that earth did not keep, full of meaning that would only become clear after enough time had passed for your heart to recognize what heaven was doing. Every quiet yes mattered. Every private surrender mattered. Every time you bit back the wrong response. Every time you walked away from the door that temptation opened. Every time you chose prayer over panic, something was being written in places no human hand could reach. You were not performing for people. And because of that, your obedience carried a fragrance that rose straight before God without mixture, without vanity, and without the need to be admired. This is why the hidden life is so powerful. The world only understands what can be displayed, counted, measured, or praised, but God watches what happens when nobody is there to reward you. He looks at what you do in the middle of the night when your emotions are loud and your options are dangerous. He looks at what you choose when disappointment gives you a perfect excuse to rebel. He looks at your restraint when anger would feel justified. He looks at your purity when compromise would be convenient. That is where your true allegiance is revealed. That is where obedience becomes more than a religious habit and turns into proof that your heart trusts Him even before the answer arrives. Joseph knew that hidden place, before the palace, before the public honor, before the visible proof that God's hand was on him. There was a young man learning how to carry a word from God without seeing any immediate fulfillment. He had dreams that spoke of destiny. But destiny did not unfold in a straight line. It moved through betrayal, confusion, humiliation, and long stretches of being unseen. Yet even there, the record of his obedience kept growing. When his brothers turned against him, heaven recorded what Joseph refused to become. When he was sold and stripped of what should have belonged to him, heaven recorded the restraint that bitterness tried and failed to steal. When he served in another man's house with no sign that the promise was near, heaven recorded faithfulness in tasks that felt far beneath the dreams God had given him. That is where many people misunderstand their own story. They think only the big moments count. They think the great revelation, the great breakthrough, the great public victory is what matters most. But God often places the heaviest weight on the smallest seeming choices. Joseph's life did not turn only on the day he stood before Pharaoh. It also turned in the ordinary days when he remained diligent while forgotten, clean while pressured, and trustworthy while wounded. The revelation later was connected to the obedience earlier. The unveiling was tied to the hidden yes. The sudden shift, when it finally came, did not begin in the throne room. It began in the private places where his character was refined without applause. And this is where your life meets that pattern. You have been living moments that seem too small to explain, too quiet to celebrate, too private to prove. Yet heaven has not treated them as small. The tears you wiped before speaking kindly anyway were seen. The temptation you resisted after a day of exhaustion was seen. The decision to stay honest when dishonesty could have brought faster relief was seen. The way you kept serving while your own heart was tired was seen. The way you chose not to curse your process, even when you did not understand it, was seen. Nothing was casual to God. He did not glance at your life. He watched with intention. There is a verse that settles this truth with such clarity that it removes every doubt. Hebrews chapter 6, verse 10 says, "For God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love, which ye have showed toward his name." That means your obedience does not vanish into silence. It means your labor is not erased because people failed to honor it. It means your hidden faithfulness is not drifting somewhere in spiritual fog, waiting for chance to notice it. God is not unrighteous to forget. He does not misplace surrendered years. He does not overlook tears offered in faith. He does not confuse your effort with emptiness. He remembers with perfect accuracy. Joseph lived inside that remembrance even when nothing around him suggested it. In Potiphar's house, when no one could have guessed what God would eventually do, the Lord was already with him. In the prison, where his name carried no influence and his innocence changed nothing about his confinement, the Lord was still with him. Notice that. The record of heaven was not waiting for ideal conditions. God's presence did not depend on Joseph being publicly vindicated. The remembrance of God was active in the pit, active in servitude, active in confinement. The same is true for you. God has not delayed his attention until your life becomes impressive to others. He has been with you in the hidden corridor, in the weary routine, in the place where your heart had to learn obedience without visible reward. So while you thought you were only surviving, a history was being written. While you thought your small acts of surrender were disappearing into ordinary days, they were being gathered into a testimony. While you wondered if anyone knew how hard it had been to remain upright, heaven kept exact account. This is why you must not despise the hidden record. This is why you must not call the secret years meaningless. Joseph could not see, in the middle of his confinement, how every faithful response was preparing the ground for a future revelation. But the record was already complete in the eyes of God. And now you stand in that same sacred tension between what has been recorded and what is about to be revealed. The unseen ledger of your obedience is full. The hidden archive of your surrender is intact. God has not lost one moment of it. What you endured in private has a purpose that public life will eventually expose. What was formed in the dark will not remain in darkness forever. The God who kept account when no one else understood is the same God who knows how to bring hidden faithfulness into visible meaning. At the exact hour that revelation can be carried without destroying the soul that prayed for it. The delay did not mean God changed his mind about you. It meant he loved you enough not to release certain things before your spirit was ready to carry them without breaking under the weight. That is one of the hardest truths to accept when you have obeyed for a long time, because obedience naturally longs for clarity. After a while, the heart begins to ask when the promise will move from seed to substance, when the prayer will become visible, when the hidden shaping will finally connect to something you can touch. Yet this is where many people misread the season. They look at delay and call it denial. They look at waiting and call it abandonment. They look at slow movement and assume heaven has stepped back. But what if the delay itself is part of the gift? What if the waiting room is not a punishment chamber, but a holy workshop where God is fitting every part of your life together with precision you cannot yet see? Joseph lived inside that mystery for years. The dream came early, but the interpretation of his life took time to unfold. There is a mercy in that. Had everything happened the moment the dream was given, his spirit might not have had the depth required for the seat he would one day occupy. The boy who received the dream had to become the man who could survive its fulfillment. That transformation could not happen in comfort alone. It had to pass through process. It had to move through misunderstanding, through false accusation, through service in hidden places, through the ache of being forgotten by people he had helped. None of that felt sacred while he was inside it, and yet all of it was sacred because God was using delay not to destroy Joseph but to prepare him. The same thing has been happening in your life. The waiting has been building something in you that instant answers never could. Patience has been stretched until it learned how to breathe under pressure. Discernment has been sharpened because you had to tell the difference between your own urgency and God's actual timing. Humility has been deepened because delay exposes how much of the heart still wants control. Trust has been purified because it is easy to call God faithful when everything moves quickly. But it takes a different level of surrender to call him faithful when the promise tarries and the path goes quiet. That kind of trust does not form on bright days alone. It is forged where answers are few and obedience must continue anyway. This is why your delay has not been empty. It has been full of invisible construction. Relationships have been sifted. Motives have been uncovered. Attachments have been tested. Desires have been brought into the light. You have been learning not only what you want from God, but whether you still want God when the timing is not what you expected. That is holy work. Painful. Yes. Stretching. Absolutely. But holy. And the reason it is holy is because God is not merely trying to get a blessing into your hand. He is shaping the kind of person who can carry the blessing without turning it into an idol, a weapon, or a substitute for intimacy with him. Joseph's prison years show this with startling clarity. The place looked like stagnation, but heaven called it preparation. The place looked like a dead end, but God was arranging future connections inside that very confinement. The place looked like wasted time, but nothing there was wasted. Joseph learned how to remain useful in a place that gave him no visible reward. He learned how to interpret what others could not understand. He learned how to serve without being seen as significant. He learned how to stay steady when being right did not immediately set him free. By the time the door opened, He was not simply a dreamer with a promise. He was a vessel with endurance, wisdom, restraint, and maturity. Delay had done its work. That is why you must be careful not to insult this season by reducing it to frustration alone. Yes, it has hurt. Yes, it has confused you. Yes, there were nights when you wanted to ask why obedience seemed to lead into longer waiting instead of quicker relief. But even in those moments, God was doing what only He can do. He was preparing you in dimensions that cannot be rushed. He was teaching your soul how to remain anchored when circumstances offer no applause. He was stripping away the parts of you that could not go where you are headed. The version of you that entered this delay is not the version of you that will leave it. So breathe here for a moment and let this settle in your spirit. What has felt slow may actually be precise. What has felt postponed may actually be protected. What has felt silent may actually be structured by wisdom too deep for quick explanations. And because that is true, your response in this season still matters. Keep your heart soft. Keep your motives clean. Keep your hands open before God. Let this message stay with you, and if it is speaking directly into your season, take a quiet second to like, share, and subscribe so this word can reach someone else who is struggling not to misread their delay. And if you feel led to support this channel, you can also donate through the link in the description as part of helping this message continue reaching the people who need it most. Joseph did not know, while serving in delay, that he was standing inside the architecture of his future. He only knew that each day still demanded faithfulness. That is where you are being tested and strengthened right now. Not in whether you can celebrate after the breakthrough arrives, but in whether you can remain surrendered while the breakthrough is still hidden behind the wall of time. That kind of obedience moves heaven. That kind of trust carries weight. And when the appointed hour arrives, you will not merely look back and say that God finally answered. You will look back and realize He was answering all along, through the shaping, through the pruning, through the sacred delay that kept your calling from reaching you too soon. One day you will see clearly that waiting was not the interruption of your destiny. Waiting was one of the ways God guarded it. There are seasons when God's silence feels sharper than open opposition. At least when resistance is visible, you know where the battle is. At least when the door shuts loudly, you can name the pain and point to the obstacle. But silence is different. Silence makes you search yourself. Silence makes you wonder whether you missed something, whether you failed some unseen test, whether heaven stepped back while you were still trying to obey. This is why silence can feel so heavy to a sincere heart, because the obedient soul does not only want blessing, it wants nearness. It wants direction. It wants the reassurance that the path is still aligned. And when that reassurance does not come in the way you expected, the mind can become a battlefield if you do not anchor yourself in truth. Joseph knew that kind of silence. He had already received dreams that pointed to purpose. Yet those dreams did not come with a map. They did not explain the pit. They did not explain slavery. They did not explain why faithfulness in Potiphar's house would be rewarded with false accusation. They did not explain why helping others in prison would still leave him forgotten. There is a silence in that kind of process that can test every part of a person. Not because God has become absent, but because He is doing a work too deep to narrate in real time. Joseph could not see what was being arranged beyond the walls around him. He could not know that his silence was not empty space, but hidden movement. He could not tell that God was allowing roots to go down while fruit remained out of sight. That is often what divine silence really is. It is not rejection. It is not neglect. It is not proof that your prayers hit the ceiling and fell back unanswered. Sometimes silence is the way God teaches you to recognize Him beyond emotion. beyond immediate signs, beyond the constant need for quick confirmation. When every feeling is warm and every signal is obvious, faith remains shallow without even realizing it. But when the heart learns to obey without daily evidence, when the spirit learns to trust God's nature without demanding his schedule, something powerful begins to form. You stop relating to him only through what is happening around you, and you begin to know him by who he has always been. That kind of knowledge cannot be borrowed from sermons or inherited from other people's stories. It is forged in quiet places where only trust can keep you standing. This is why your silent season has carried so much pressure. God has been strengthening your inward hearing. He has been teaching you how to remain still when panic wants to invent answers. He has been teaching you how to refuse counterfeit doors opened by anxiety. He has been teaching you how to distinguish between his timing and your desperation. And that lesson is not small. A person who has never gone through divine silence can mistake every emotional impulse for instruction. A person who has never been stripped of constant signs can become addicted to external reassurance. But a person who has stayed with God through silence begins to grow roots that storms cannot easily uproot. Joseph had to become that kind of person. In prison, there was no public evidence that the promise was near. There was no visible sign that his story was being preserved for something greater. Day after day, he had to wake up inside circumstances that did not match the dream he once received. Yet something remarkable happened in that silence. He did not collapse into uselessness. He did not let hidden pain rot into hidden corruption. He stayed attentive. He stayed responsive. He kept serving. He kept interpreting. He kept moving in wisdom even in a place that seemed to give nothing back. That is what silence was producing in him. Not passivity but depth, not despair but endurance, not spiritual numbness but sharpened readiness. And that may be exactly what is happening in you right now. You may be mistaking the absence of explanation for the absence of God. You may be measuring his presence by how much clarity you feel in a given moment. But God is not reduced to your immediate sense of certainty. He remains God in the quiet. He remains faithful in the pause. He remains near when your emotions are too tired to recognize what your spirit still knows. Silence is not always where revelation ends. Sometimes silence is where revelation ripens. Sometimes the answer delays because your inner life is being trained to handle it without pride, without panic, and without confusion. So do not run from this part of the process. Let silence finish what noise could never build. Let it expose every place where fear still tries to control your choices. Let it reveal every false dependency that made you think you needed constant signs to remain obedient. Let it deepen your roots until your confidence rests not in visible movement, but in the character of the God who cannot fail. Joseph did not understand his silence while he was inside it, but when the moment of unveiling came, he stood ready because the quiet had trained him. The years that seemed unanswered had actually been preparing his hearing, his restraint, his wisdom, and his steadiness for the hour that would change everything. And before we move forward, there is one practical note for those who have also been struggling with mental fog, stress, scattered focus, or the feeling that your mind has been worn down by pressure. Some people have found tools like the Genius Wave or Genius Song helpful as a simple audio-based routine designed to support focus, calm, creativity, and clearer thinking in just a few minutes a day through brainwave entrainment-style sound technology. If that sounds relevant to your season, you can look for the official information in the description or pinned comment. And if you decide to try it, be careful with imitations and only use the official source. And as you continue forward, let your spirit settle into this truth with quiet confidence. You are not being ignored, and you are not walking without direction even when clarity feels distant. What is forming in you now will speak louder than anything you could force into existence too early. Stay anchored, stay aware, and stay willing to trust beyond what you can currently explain. Because the same God who allowed the silence is the one who will break it at the exact right moment. And when he does, everything you endured will suddenly make sense in a way that leaves no room for doubt. By now, you can begin to understand that the weight you carried was never random. It was not careless pain thrown into your life without meaning, and it was not proof that God had singled you out for unnecessary suffering. The weight was assignment. The pressure was part of your preparation. The burdens that seemed too heavy for your shoulders were shaping strength in places that comfort never reaches. You did not choose many of the things that came against you, and you certainly did not enjoy the stretching, but heaven was not wasting any of it. God was building capacity in you. He was teaching your spirit how to endure without collapsing, how to stay tender without becoming weak, and how to remain faithful without needing every reason explained in advance. This is where many people lose heart, because they think calling should always feel glorious while it is forming. They imagine that divine purpose arrives wrapped in constant encouragement, open doors, and visible affirmation. But often the true assignment begins as weight. It begins as responsibility that nobody sees, and it begins as pressure that strips away illusions. It begins as circumstances that force you to grow beyond your preferences. That is not because God delights in making his children struggle. It is because there are dimensions of strength, compassion, restraint, and authority that cannot be developed in shallow places. If the vessel is going to carry something holy, the vessel must be enlarged, and enlargement often feels like pressure before it looks like promotion. Joseph's life reveals this with painful beauty. The dream in his youth was real, but the dream alone was not enough to prepare him for what it would eventually require. He needed more than vision. He needed depth. He needed more than promise. He needed formation. So the weight came. The betrayal of his brothers became weight. The sudden descent from favored son to sold servant became weight. The responsibility of serving with excellence in a foreign house became weight. The pain of false accusation became weight. The darkness of prison became weight. The sting of being forgotten after helping others became weight. At every stage, the assignment was growing larger than the moment itself. Joseph was not simply enduring isolated hardships. He was being shaped into someone who could carry power without revenge, influence without corruption, and responsibility without pride. That is what your own pressure has been doing. You thought you were just trying to survive one more season, but God was enlarging your inner world. He was teaching you how to bear disappointment without letting it deform your character. He was teaching you how to stay honest when dishonesty seemed rewarded. He was teaching you how to keep serving while your own heart needed healing. He was teaching you how to remain compassionate after being misunderstood. These lessons are not decorative, they are essential. The greater the assignment, the deeper the shaping must go. A shallow soul cannot sustain real authority for long. A wounded soul that refuses healing will eventually bleed on everything it touches. A gifted person without refinement may rise quickly, but that rise will not hold. God loved you too much to let your future rest on an untested foundation. There is a scripture that speaks directly into this mystery. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17 says, "For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory." Notice the language there. The affliction is not described as meaningless. It is working. It is producing. It is forming something heavier than the pain itself. Glory has weight, and before glory can rest upon a life, the inner structure has to be strengthened enough to carry it. This is why your affliction has felt intense. It has been working in places you could not immediately measure. It has been preparing your heart for a weight greater than the burden you feared would break you. Joseph's prison years show exactly how this works. From the outside, prison looked like the collapse of his story. It looked like the burial of his dream. It looked like injustice winning for too long. But inside that hidden place, weight was creating capacity. He learned how to manage responsibility in confined conditions. He learned how to observe people carefully enough to recognize what others missed. He learned how to interpret signals that did not make sense on the surface. He learned how to wait without becoming useless. He learned how to keep his spirit from rotting in bitterness. Those were not side lessons. They were central to the assignment. The very things Joseph would need later were being built while he seemed most restricted. And this is why you must stop calling yourself weak simply because the process has been painful. Weak people do not keep obeying when obedience is costly. Weak people do not remain soft before God after repeated disappointment. Weak people do not keep praying through confusion, keep showing kindness through private hurt, keep walking clean through temptation, and keep standing when no one understands the price. The fact that you have felt the weight does not mean you are failing. It means you are carrying what lesser versions of you could not have handled. It means God has trusted you with a process that is enlarging your soul for something greater than your present surroundings. Even now, some of the heaviest things in your life are making room for future clarity. The tears you cried under pressure have deepened your compassion. The betrayals you survived have sharpened your discernment. The seasons where you had little control have taught you surrender. The long nights have taught you how to hear God without outward applause. The moments where you had to keep moving while your heart ached have built endurance that will one day steady others. Nothing has been wasted. The assignment has been hidden inside the weight all along. So do not resent the shaping. Do not curse the season just because it asked more of you than you thought you had to give. Joseph did not understand, in the middle of his burden, that each layer of pressure was preparing him for the hour when revelation and responsibility would meet. But when that hour came, he was ready because the weight had done its work. And in the same way, what has pressed on you is not the end of your story. It is part of how God has been preparing you to carry what is coming without breaking beneath its glory. Some doors did not open because they were never meant to carry you into your future. That truth can be difficult to accept when you have prayed sincerely, hoped deeply, and brought your full heart before God only to watch the opportunity close anyway. In those moments, rejection feels personal. It feels final. It feels like proof that something essential was withheld from you. But there are times when a closed door is not a verdict against your worth. It is a form of protection that only looks painful before revelation catches up. God will sometimes block what you are emotionally ready to run toward because He can already see what that path would cost your peace, your calling, your discernment, and your obedience. You have lived through some of those closures already. You have seen plans fall apart that you were sure would work. You have watched people walk away when you expected loyalty. You have stood before opportunities that seemed perfect on the surface, only to feel them dissolve in your hands with no explanation strong enough to comfort you in the moment. There is a special kind of ache in that, because the human heart naturally tries to turn rejection into identity. It asks, what is wrong with me? It asks, why not me? It asks why obedience seems to lead to less while compromise appears to move others ahead. But those questions, though understandable, do not always tell the truth. Sometimes the closed door is not revealing your lack. Sometimes it is revealing God's refusal to let what is lesser trap what is chosen. Joseph's life makes this plain in a way that only hindsight can fully appreciate. There were many doors he could have begged God to open that would have actually ruined the larger purpose over his life. He might have wanted immediate rescue from the pit. But had he returned too early, the deeper formation of his spirit would not have happened. He might have wanted an easier assignment than servitude in Potiphar's house. But the discipline developed there became part of his preparation. He certainly would have wanted the false accusation to be overturned immediately. But the prison he did not choose became the place where the right connections would later emerge. Even the butler forgetting him, painful as it was, became part of divine timing. Joseph was living through one closed door after another, yet none of those closures canceled the promise. They preserved it. That is why you must be careful about how you interpret what did not work. Not every closed relationship was a loss. Not every unanswered request was neglect. Not every redirection was punishment. Some things ended because their assignment in your life was complete. Some things never started because they were never authorized by God in the first place. Some paths disappeared because they were built on appearances instead of substance. And some doors closed because if they had opened, you would have entered too early, too wounded, too naive, or too attached to something that could not sustain the future God intends for you. This is part of what makes chosen lives look so confusing from the outside. Other people may seem to advance through doors you were denied. They may secure the connection, the title, the platform, the opportunity, or the relationship that you once desired. And for a while it may even look like they succeeded while you were restricted. But you do not know what those doors carry beyond the first room. You do not know what compromise was required to enter. You do not know what hidden burden came attached. And you do not know what God kept from touching your life by saying no when your heart wanted yes. Protection rarely feels pleasant at first. It often feels like loss until time reveals what was actually being prevented. Joseph had to live long enough to understand that his shut doors were not random cruelty. They were instruments inside a larger design. Had Potiphar's wife succeeded in pulling him into sin, one open door of compromise would have poisoned everything. Had Joseph chosen resentment instead of integrity after rejection, he would have damaged the very character needed for elevation. Had he forced his way into recognition before God's appointed hour, the pressure of sudden influence could have exposed unhealed places in his soul. But because doors closed, because false paths collapsed, because timing remained under God's hand, Joseph arrived at revelation with his inner structure intact, and the same can be true for you. The heartbreak that made no sense may have protected you from a bond that would have drained your purpose. The opportunity that vanished may have hidden corruption behind its polished face. The invitation that never returned may have spared you from an environment that celebrated your gift while starving your spirit. The delay in being seen may have been mercy, because visibility before healing can become its own kind of trap. What God blocks is just as important as what He releases. His no is not empty. His no can guard your mind, your calling, your relationships, your future children, your integrity, and your intimacy with Him. So let yourself begin to reinterpret the shut doors. Do not worship them by grieving them forever. Do not keep standing outside what God closed, asking Him to change His mind about what His wisdom already settled. There are seasons when obedience means walking away without full explanation. There are seasons when trust means blessing the door as it closes and refusing to chase what God did not preserve. That takes maturity. It takes humility. It takes the kind of faith that Joseph had to learn over time. the faith to believe that even rejection can become part of divine arrangement. And perhaps this is a good place to pause and let your heart breathe. If this message is helping you see your closed doors differently, you can quietly like, share, and subscribe so this word reaches others who are still grieving what God may actually have been protecting them from. And if you want to support the continued sharing of these messages, there is a way to donate in the description. Sometimes the people who need this kind of encouragement most are standing right in the middle of disappointment, and your support helps keep that light available. But return now to the deeper truth. Joseph's story did not move forward because every door opened. It moved forward because God ruled over which doors stayed shut until the right one opened at the appointed time. That is your comfort now. You do not need universal access. You need divine alignment. You do not need every person to choose you. You need the places and people that are truly assigned to your journey. And when those arrive, they will not require you to betray what God has been building in secret. The closed doors were not proof that you were forsaken. They were evidence that your life is being handled with more precision than you could see, while you were still crying outside the threshold. One day you will thank God not only for what He gave, but for everything He refused to let you force open before its time. There comes a moment in every God-ordered process when what has been moving in secret begins to show signs in the visible world. It does not always begin with thunder. It does not always arrive with immediate spectacle. Sometimes it starts as a small change in atmosphere, a subtle rearranging, a sudden opening that could easily be dismissed if you did not know how long heaven had been preparing it. But make no mistake, when God begins to move what He has shaped in hiddenness toward manifestation, the shift is real. It is not imagination. It is not wishful thinking. It is the evidence that the season of unseen preparation is beginning to touch the ground of your everyday life. This is where many chosen ones feel both relief and trembling at the same time. Relief, because at last there is movement. Trembling, because visible change can be just as overwhelming as hidden waiting. You prayed for the shift, but when it starts, you realize it carries responsibility. You asked God to reveal what He was doing, but revelation changes how you must live. It calls for readiness, sobriety, and continued humility. The shift is not permission to become careless. It is the hour when everything built in private must now support what begins to emerge in public. Joseph arrived at such a moment suddenly, at least from the outside. For years, his life had seemed buried under delay, betrayal, service, accusation, and confinement. Then, in a single turning, he was summoned from prison to stand before Pharaoh. To the natural eye, it looked sudden. To heaven, it had been prepared for a very long time. The dreams Pharaoh could not understand became the doorway Joseph had been trained to walk through. The gift that had been sharpened in obscurity was now required in a room of power. The wisdom formed in hardship was no longer hidden. The endurance developed through silence was no longer theoretical. The shift had begun to manifest. That is how God often works. He allows a long season where almost nothing makes sense to you. And then the pieces begin to move with a speed that reveals He was never late. What looked stalled was actually being timed. What looked buried was actually being preserved. What looked forgotten was actually being kept for a precise intersection of need, maturity, and divine appointment. Joseph was not called out of prison simply because he had suffered enough. He was called out because the hour had come when what God placed inside him matched what the moment required. That is the difference between human striving and divine manifestation. Striving tries to force an opening before the time. Manifestation occurs when God's preparation and God's timing meet. You may be standing near that kind of threshold right now. Perhaps you can sense that something is shifting, even if you cannot fully describe it yet. Perhaps the things that once stayed locked have begun to loosen. Perhaps conversations are changing. Perhaps clarity is increasing. Perhaps old burdens are losing their grip. Perhaps doors that required striving before are now opening with a strange peace around them. These are not things to take lightly. When God begins to bring hidden work into visible expression, you must pay attention. The shift often begins quietly, but it carries consequences that will reach far beyond the first sign. Joseph did not enter that moment boasting about his suffering or demanding recognition for all he had endured. He entered with clarity and humility. When Pharaoh asked for interpretation, Joseph did not turn the moment into self-exaltation. He pointed beyond himself and gave glory to God. That matters deeply. The shift is safest in the hands of someone who still remembers where the strength came from. Elevation without humility becomes danger. Manifestation without reverence becomes corruption. But Joseph had been processed too deeply for that. The pit had humbled him. Service had disciplined him. Prison had refined him. So when the moment arrived, he could carry it without losing himself. This is why your hidden years were so necessary. If the visible shift had arrived earlier, you might have misused it, feared it, or tied your identity to it in unhealthy ways. But now, after all God has done in secret, you are in a different place. You know what it is to wait. You know what it is to lose. You know what it is to obey without applause. Those lessons become anchors when manifestation begins. They keep your soul from rising too high in pride or collapsing in fear. They remind you that the same God who sustained you in obscurity must still sustain you in visibility. There is a verse that captures this transition with great power. Genesis chapter 41, verse 14 says, "Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon." Hear the force of that moment. Hastily. What had been delayed for years moved quickly when the appointed time arrived. The dungeon was not Joseph's final address. The hidden place was never meant to define his entire story. When the hour came, movement that had seemed impossible became immediate. This is how God can work in your life as well. The long delay does not prevent a sudden turn. In fact, the long delay can make the sudden turn all the more unmistakable when it comes. So do not fear the shift when it begins. Receive it with a steady spirit. Do not rush ahead of it, and do not shrink back from it. Let the discipline of your hidden season stay with you. Let the humility of your waiting remain intact. Let the tenderness formed through pain continue to guide you. Joseph's manifestation did not erase the process that came before it. It revealed why that process mattered. And in the same way, what begins to open in your life will not cancel the hidden years. It will explain them. The movement now starting to appear is not random change. It is the first visible edge of something heaven has been arranging for far longer than you knew. And it is arriving with the precision of a God who never wastes obedience, never forgets faithfulness, and never loses control of the story he himself began. What God is about to reveal is not limited to one blessing, one answer, or one visible breakthrough. It is larger than that. Revelation from God does not merely place something in your hands. It uncovers meaning. It gathers scattered years and shows you how they were connected all along. It pulls the veil back from moments that once looked random, painful, unfair, or delayed. And suddenly you begin to see that the story was never broken. It was hidden. The pieces were never lost. They were being arranged beyond your sight. And when God chooses the hour of unveiling, He does not only reveal what is next, he also reveals what the last season was really doing inside you. This is why revelation carries such power. It heals confusion. It breaks the grip of false interpretation. It silences the lie that your obedience was wasted. There are wounds that do not begin to close until God reveals what he was doing beneath the surface. There are questions that cannot be answered by human logic because their answer lives inside divine timing. You have carried some of those questions for a long time. Why did that door close? Why did that person betray you? Why did the season stretch so far beyond your expectations? Why did your faithfulness seem to lead into deeper testing instead of easier relief? Revelation does not always answer every detail, but when it comes from God, it gives enough light for the heart to rest. It gives enough clarity for the soul to stop fighting yesterday and start walking into what is now opening. Joseph came into that kind of revelation in layers. First came the interpretation before Pharaoh, where what had been hidden in him was suddenly revealed as necessary for an entire nation. Then came elevation, where the years of obscurity were redefined by visible purpose. But even deeper revelation came later, when his brothers stood before him. In that moment, Joseph was not only confronted with the people connected to his pain, he was confronted with the meaning of his journey. The pit, the slavery, the accusation, the prison, the waiting, the forgotten years. All of it came into view under a greater light. What others intended for destruction had been carried by God into preservation. That kind of revelation changes a person. It frees them from shallow readings of their own life. You are moving toward that kind of unveiling. God is preparing to reveal not only open doors, but the truth behind the closed ones. He is preparing to reveal not only provision, but the wisdom behind the delay. He is preparing to reveal not only new favor, but the reason certain relationships had to fall away. You may have spent years naming your season by its pain, but God is able to rename it by its purpose. And when he does, shame loses its voice, regret loses its chains, fear loses its argument. You stop seeing yourself as the one left behind, the one overlooked, the one buried under unanswered questions. You begin to see that you are being positioned, guarded, shaped, and preserved with more care than you understood. This is why you must stay close to God in the moments before revelation. The soul can grow impatient right before the veil lifts. The flesh can try to force conclusions before the full picture appears. But premature interpretation can distort what God is about to make clear. Joseph did not seize his own meaning too early. He had to live long enough for God to explain his life through fulfillment. The same is true for you. Some things cannot be understood from the middle. They can only be understood from the place where promise and process finally meet. There is a verse that carries the heart of this unveiling with stunning force. Genesis chapter 50 verse 20 says, "But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good." That is revelation, not denial of pain. Not pretending evil was good, not rewriting betrayal as kindness. It is something deeper. It is the recognition that God's sovereignty moved above what human hands intended and brought forth a purpose greater than the wound itself. Joseph did not say the betrayal was imaginary. He said God meant it unto good. The evil was real, but it did not get the final meaning. God did, and that may be the very word your spirit has needed. What happened to you may have been real. The loss was real. The confusion was real. The disappointment was real. The abandonment may have been real. But the final meaning of your life does not belong to the people who wounded you, ignored you, lied on you, or mishandled your heart. The final meaning belongs to God. He alone has the authority to interpret what your story is becoming. He alone can reveal how survival became preparation, how hiddenness became training, how delay became alignment, and how pain became the place where deeper oil was formed. When that revelation begins to break over you, it will not only change how you see the past, it will change how you stand in the present. You will pray differently. You will trust differently. You will stop begging God to explain every detail before you move. You will begin to recognize His fingerprints in places you once called empty. The very things that almost made you give up will become part of the testimony that steadies someone else. So hold yourself still before God now. Let your heart remain open. Let your spirit remain teachable. The unveiling is not just about information, it is about transformation. It is about seeing with healed eyes. It is about understanding your own journey under divine light instead of human fear. And if this word bears witness with your spirit, comment God revealed it. Because the same God who carried Joseph through hidden years is still revealing purpose to those who obeyed Him in the dark. And what He is uncovering in your life is going to make the waiting, the silence, and the mystery speak with a clarity only heaven could give. As revelation draws nearer to completion, there is always a warning that comes with it. Not because God wants you afraid, but because elevation changes the level of spiritual attention around your life. What you prayed for can become dangerous in the hands of a heart that stops guarding itself. What you waited for can become a distraction if you begin to love the unveiling more than the one who unveiled it. This is why the final moments before visible elevation require unusual sobriety. You are not just stepping into new opportunity. You are stepping into a new level of responsibility. And responsibility without spiritual alertness can undo in one careless season what obedience built through many painful years. Joseph's life shows this with remarkable depth. By the time he stood in power, the greatest danger was no longer the pit, the prison, or the false accusation. Those seasons were brutal, but they were obvious. The danger after elevation was more subtle. It was the danger of forgetting how God formed him. It was the danger of allowing power to replace dependence. It was the danger of using authority to settle old emotional accounts rather than serve the purpose for which he had been raised. Many people survive hardship only to be wounded by success. Many can stay near God when they are desperate, but drift when they become established. That is why the soul must stay guarded, because elevation reveals what hardship could not always expose. This is a word for you now because what is coming cannot be entered casually. You have been refined too deeply to lose yourself at the edge of fulfillment. You have cried too many hidden tears to become proud now. You have obeyed too long in private to become careless in public. Yet this is exactly where the enemy often tries to strike, not always by obvious temptation, but through subtle shifts. A little self-importance, a little spiritual laziness, a little compromise justified by pressure, a little resentment carried into the new season because old wounds were never fully surrendered. These things do not always announce themselves loudly. Sometimes they creep in under the language of relief, reward, and finally. That is why you must stay awake. Joseph remained awake. When he was given authority, he did not rush to glorify himself. He did not rewrite his own story in a way that erased God's hand. He did not let the suddenness of elevation intoxicate his judgment. He applied wisdom. He stored grain. He prepared for famine while plenty still filled the land. That is more than administrative skill. It is spiritual maturity. It is the ability to understand that blessing does not remove the need for discipline. In fact, blessing increases it. The season of abundance is not the time to sleep. It is the time to steward carefully what God has placed within reach. That principle matters for your life as well. When God begins to reveal and release what He has prepared, do not assume the battle is over just because the atmosphere changes. Stay prayerful. Stay honest before God. Stay quick to repent. Stay slow to exalt yourself. Do not let visible movement make you less dependent on invisible grace. The soul that remains safest in elevation is the soul that still remembers the prison, still remembers the silence, still remembers who sustained it when there was no applause, no clarity, and no visible reward. Memory can protect you if it remains sanctified. It can keep you humble without keeping you bound. There is also another warning here, and it concerns vengeance. When God raises a person who has suffered injustice, there can be a temptation to make the new position answer old pain. But Joseph did not use his authority to become the author of someone else's humiliation. He was tested there too. The brothers who once stripped him stood before him in weakness. He had power now. He had proof now. He had every earthly reason to repay hurt with hurt. Yet the work God had done in him was deeper than the wound they gave him. That is one of the clearest signs that a person is ready for elevation. They no longer need revenge to feel restored. You may need to hear that plainly. Do not carry old bitterness into your new season. Do not bring suspicion into every fresh relationship just because former people broke trust. Do not poison what is about to open by remaining emotionally chained to what once closed. God is not lifting you so you can rehearse pain from a higher seat. He is lifting you so His purpose can move more freely through a yielded life. That requires clean hands and a clean heart. It requires forgiveness. Not because what happened was acceptable, but because unforgiveness is too expensive to carry where you are going. Scripture gives this warning and this protection with stunning simplicity. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23 says, "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." Keep thy heart, not just in hardship, but in transition, not just in sorrow, but in success, not just when doors are closed, but when they begin to open. The heart is still the wellspring. If it becomes contaminated, what flows from your life will also be contaminated. But if it remains guarded before God, then what comes out of your new season will carry clarity, mercy, wisdom, and strength instead of pride, fear, and hidden corrosion. Joseph's heart had to stay guarded all the way to the end of the unfolding. That is why he could interpret power correctly. That is why he could feed nations instead of merely feeding his own ego. That is why he could face his brothers with tears instead of destruction. That is why revelation did not ruin him. He had been shaped not only for arrival but for stewardship. And now that same warning stands before you as mercy. Guard your spirit. Guard your motives. Guard your gratitude. Guard the tenderness God built in you through pain. What is about to be revealed is precious. And precious things require careful hands. The hour of elevation is not the hour to relax your discernment. It is the hour to deepen it. Because the same God who brought you through hidden obedience wants you to enter visible fulfillment in a way that keeps your soul whole, your purpose clear, and your heart fully surrendered to Him. Now you stand at the edge of the thing God has been preparing all along. And you can feel that this is not merely the end of a hard season. It is the beginning of a different way of seeing yourself, your history, your calling, and the hand of God over everything that once confused you. The obedience that felt hidden was never small. The delay that felt endless was never empty. The silence that stretched your faith was never the absence of love. The weight that nearly made you bend was never meaningless. The closed doors that broke your heart were never proof of abandonment. And the shift that began to show itself was never random. All of it was leading here, to the place where you no longer beg to be chosen because you finally understand that you were being formed as one already set apart. This is where you stop apologizing for the process that made you deeper. This is where you stop grieving every closed chapter as though nothing holy could have happened there. This is where you stop calling yourself late when God has been exact. The crown God places on a life is not decoration. It is responsibility. It is identity under pressure. It is authority wrapped in surrender. It is the visible sign of invisible refining. And if you are going to wear what God has prepared for you, you must wear it with the same humility that carried you through the hidden years. You must not become intoxicated by the unveiling. You must remain near the one who authored it. Joseph's story, woven through these sacred sections of your own journey, shows you what this final step looks like. He did not step into purpose as a man untouched by suffering. He stepped into it as someone who had been emptied, tested, humbled, disciplined, and matured. He could carry authority because he had already learned obedience. He could hold influence because he had already learned restraint. He could bless others because pain had not turned his heart to stone. That is what makes the ending of his story so powerful. It is not merely that he rose. It is that he rose without losing the fear of God, without losing compassion, and without surrendering the inner truth that heaven had been writing into him from the very beginning. That is the kind of rising prepared for you, not a rise that flatters the ego, but a rise that reveals the workmanship of God, not a rise that makes you forget the pit, but one that helps you interpret the pit correctly, not a rise that invites revenge, but one that releases wisdom, stability, peace, and provision into places that once knew only lack. You are not being crowned so you can dominate from wounded pride. You are being crowned so you can stand in the identity God formed through surrender and become a living witness that obedience is never wasted. So let this become your posture now. Open your hands before God. Release the final pieces of bitterness. Release the final need to be validated by people who never understood your calling. Release the final attachment to old versions of yourself that were built only to survive. You do not need those old defenses where God is taking you. You do not need that fear. You do not need that striving. You do not need to force what heaven has already scheduled. What you need now is willingness. What you need now is purity of heart. What you need now is the courage to walk forward without shrinking from the very thing you once prayed for. And let this prayer rise naturally from where you are right now. Father, thank you for every hidden place where you kept me. Thank you for every unanswered question that protected me from rushing ahead of your wisdom. Thank you for every closed door that preserved my future, every silent season that deepened my faith, and every burden that built strength in places I did not know I would need. Heal what still aches in me. Cleanse what still trembles in me. Remove every fear that makes me want to hide from the life you are calling me into. Keep my heart humble when doors open. Keep my spirit tender when recognition comes. Keep my motives clean when influence increases. Let me carry what you reveal without pride, without confusion, and without turning away from the one who brought me through. And let my life testify that your timing is perfect, your ways are holy, and your faithfulness never fails. In Jesus' name, amen. Now receive this with peace. You do not have to manufacture the next chapter. You only have to remain yielded as it unfolds. The crown is not something you steal. It is something you grow into under the hand of God. And because of that, what is coming will fit the person He has been shaping in secret. Let this truth settle deeply in you today. And if this message has walked with you through your own hidden season, you can gently like, share, and subscribe so that someone else standing in silence, delay, or heartbreak can find this word at the right time. And for those who want to help this message continue reaching people who need it, there is also a way to donate in the description. But above all, do not leave this moment thinking only about a message. Leave thinking about alignment. Leave thinking about surrender. Leave thinking about the God who saw every hidden yes and wasted none of them. You are not stepping into a fantasy. You are stepping into the fruit of a process heaven supervised with precision. Walk with reverence. Walk with gratitude. Walk with courage. The same God who preserved you in obscurity will preserve you in visibility. The same God who taught you through silence will guide you through fulfillment. The same God who carried you through the breaking will steady you in the blessing. And as you move forward now, you do not move as someone merely hoping to be used. You move as someone who has been prepared, revealed, and called to stand fully inside the identity heaven guarded for you all along. As this script comes to rest, let your soul remain still for one final moment and breathe in the goodness of God over your life. You have come too far to doubt His hand now. You have survived too much to call yourself forgotten. What was hidden is not lost. What was delayed is not denied. What was painful is not pointless. Carry that with you when this message ends. Carry it into your morning, into your prayer time, into your decisions, and into the next door God opens. Let peace replace panic. Let gratitude replace bitterness. Let trust replace the need to control every detail. You are still in God's hands, and those hands have never once failed to hold what belongs to Him. Stay close to Him. Stay honest before Him. Stay willing. The story is not ending in confusion. It is ending in clarity, and it is opening into purpose.